Welcome back, everyone. I hope you were able to enjoy a quick bite of lunch, and we are now heading into our last several sessions for today's program. It gives me great pleasure to introduce our next speaker, who is Claire Champeix. Claire has extensive experience of policy work, research, and project coordination in the social field at local and European levels. She has worked with social NGOs at the European level for more than 15 years and contributed to efficient lobbying and awareness raising strategies aimed at developing social cohesion, notably in the areas of poverty reduction, social inclusion, independent living, care, and caring. She has also been working with local authorities for 7 years. Claire's background is in political sciences and sociology, and the topic for her presentation today is Who Cares for the Caregivers? Claire, I will turn the floor to you.
Good afternoon. Thank you for your nice introduction. My name is Claire Champeix, and I'm working for Eurocarers, the organization working for and with informal carers. I feel particularly honored to be with you today. I think it's a great chance to have the opportunity to meet you. I've prepared a presentation. I will take you through this presentation a bit, maybe quickly, because I've put many links in it, and I know the presentation will remain available on the event website, so you might refer to it later if you want to have more detail about what I'm going to speak about, because I really want to have time to discuss with you and to have this decent Q&A session at the end and hear from your reaction and your questions. My presentation will address 4 main points. First, I will introduce you to our organization. I would like to stress then the issues carers have in common and the impact of the COVID-19 crisis. I would like to think about how to release the pressure at individual and global level. And to finish with, I would like to take you through this the rich tapestry of advocacy at EU level and national level also, and the potential levers today to progress in relation to care and caring. So, yeah, our organization just... Okay, that works. Great. We promote at the EU level the needs and the added value of informal carers. And importantly, we advocate for choice. So we are not promoting informal care as such. We just say it's a reality, and it should be a choice. People should be able to make the choice to be an informal carer for someone in their family, but they should be also allowed not to choose it, make a different choice, or to mix formal or informal carer, or not to care at all if this is not an option for them. We gather 71 organizations across Europe in 28 countries, and we are also connected to international organizations. And we gather, importantly, both carers organizations, so people who are working in the field and who are self-organized, but also relevant research organization involved in medical science, social science, political science, nursing science, in the silver economy, in health economy. So a wide range of area in which the research is trying to find some solution. We define informal carers, an informal carer, as someone who provides care on a regular basis, usually unpaid, even if you might receive some benefit in some countries, to someone with a chronic illness, disability, or other long-lasting health or care needs outside of any professional or formal network. So this, you might also speak about family carers, about carers. We like this definition of informal carers because it is broad. It involves also those who are not part of the family, but neighbor, friends who might help someone. And also we insist on the fact that there's no formalization. Our advocacy and our commitment is to support all carers. So people who provide care to someone because of his or her frailty, or because of a disease, or because of handicap or any other reason. But we also like to insist on the fact that to support informal carers adequately, you need to adapt to the specific condition of the people they care for. This is why, for example, we've developed already some specific cooperation on other non-communicable diseases, for example, on cancer with the patient organization. We did both advocacy with a white paper and also a guide which is online, which is available in many languages, which helps providing facts and support to carers in Europe. So that was just to show you how we kind of sometimes function with on specific non-communicable disease. But mostly we insist on the issues informal carers have in common, because we, if you look at the reality, more than 80% of long-term care for any reason is provided by informal carers. So it's a big group, and we don't often realize how big this group is. In reality, it concerns everyone at a certain stage in life, and we commonly say that everybody has been, his, or will be a carer. And the pressure of informal carer is increasing due to demographic change, the fact that we're living longer life, but not necessarily in good health. So carers are helping providing care on longer periods for diseases that are and treatments which get more complicated. At the same time, we expect people to work longer to address the sustainability issues and to be geographically mobile. So how can you bring all this together? There's a big pressure on people to provide care. And there's a clear correlation between caring responsibilities and employment-related difficulties, social exclusion, poverty, and health issues. And this is mainly a woman's problem, because most of the carers are women, 2/3 of them, and they are more affected by the impact on employment. So sometimes, because we're thinking about employment issue, inclusion issue on the one hand, and health issue on the second hand, and not crossing data and looking at intersection of data and taking the all issues into account, we tend to undermine this the impact of caring on the life of people. Yeah, and this is very clear in data, we lack robust and sufficient data on caring and the impact of carers, but we have some evidence. And it's clear that it's mostly women of middle age. And it's clear also that when you look at the proportion of people having health issue, having economic issues, being isolated, if you are a carer, and especially if you are not working, you are more at risk of being impacted by these problematics. And you have more chances to be to feel lonely and to feel that what you do in society is not recognized. And you are more likely to suffer from the impact on your health and well-being of carer responsibility. We know that there are different dynamics at play. Physically, caregiving often requires physically demanding work of a long duration, which might cause musculoskeletal injuries and aggravation. A carer with a heavy responsibility, you tend to put your relatives' health first and forget about your own health. So forget about or postponing appointment to the GP, checks, medical checking and everything. You need to also neglect a healthy lifestyle in terms of diet and exercise. Also, there's a big amount of stress, and which is having an impact of your health. It is recognized that the prevalence of mental health problems among carers is 20% higher than among non-carers. And we had a survey recently in France showing that almost half of carers report having health problems, which started after they started becoming a carer, and that half of carers don't mention these health difficulties with health professional. And this very prevalent issue have been just aggravated by the COVID crisis, clearly. And now we can measure it, we can see it. We've just published a study within Eurocarers that was made based on a questionnaire answered by more than 20,500 people across different countries in Europe, and there's a clear impact on the social participation, on the quality of life, of mental health and psychological state of mind. And there are also, importantly, an impact of the amount of caring that people are delivering. There's more carers provide more hours in a more intense way, and there are more carers. Many people became carers during this crisis. In this infographic, you can see in a snapshot what we conclude from the analysis of the questionnaire, and you really can see that in terms of mental health, in terms of impact on the stress and the psychological well-being, you have very strong impact. Carers felt overwhelmed, concerned about the consequences of the COVID on their caring role, increased the caregiving activity in many aspects. I won't go into detail again, but we have, I think with this crisis, we have reached a breaking point in what you can expect from carers in our society. Therefore, the question is how to release the pressure now. I think two ways of looking at this question. First is about self-care. And the first thing is, in dealing with the issue, is to recognize that it is happening. The issue we see often is a lack of self-awareness of carers. You become a carer because it's normal, because it's what is expected from you. It's what you want to do or what you feel there's no choice. So, but many people don't realize that they're entering a zone where you are at risk, where you should look at your health very carefully, because it's a risky activity. So first, realizing that you are at risk, discuss it with a health professional for advice on relaxation technique, and also on what would be helpful for you to manage this pressure. I mean, the classical pieces of advice about physical activity, regular checkups are relevant, but we know that it's very difficult to, even if you know about it, it's very difficult often to follow these pieces of advice, since you are so isolated and overwhelmed that it is difficult to think about yourself. So one thing that works, and which is more and more being developed and evaluated, is peer support. It's proving very effective to be part of a group with people sharing the same difficulties, the same concerns, and to provide support and advice to each other. Can range from very practical advice if a group is in your neighborhood about available services, available solutions in your neighborhood, in your area, and good health professional and that sort of things, but also exchanging about your feelings and your difficulties, realizing that you're not the only one not to be a carer and to be facing this same difficulty is very helpful. And more and more, this has been also further developed during the crisis. Online peer support groups have been developed. You might find non-structured groups on Facebook, on other media, but you also have more and more organizations who kind of structure in a flexible ways intervention for groups, where you would have carers really leading the discussion, experienced carers obviously, but with the backup of some professional for practical advice, addresses, and everything. So yeah, you just see the testimony of a woman who have been joining an online forum in one of our organizations in the UK, and who became also after that a facilitator. And she was just happy to and relieved to find that other people who felt the same way were around, and she felt disheartened, lonely, resentful, and guilty. This is often the case, and it's often difficult to share this with people who are not going through the same difficulties. Then, how to release the pressure on carers? You have also to face the fact that it should not rely only on individual responsibility, but it's also about policies. It's also about public authority, willingness to put solutions and to look at the problem and to provide some adequate support. Recently, we've published, it was last autumn, so it's in 2020, but you will be able to click on the link and find this, a series of good practices, very recent, that illustrates what is possible and what can really help carers. And it's ranged from supporting young carers, because many teenagers, young adults, have this responsibility of providing care to someone in the family, and they should be supported if we want them to have the same chances and same opportunity as others. You have a lot of training initiative provided for carers, which help them not only to learn about how to care, but also how to self-care and how to recognize themselves in this ecosystem of informal care. You have in different countries progress on work-life balance, and this is very important because it's key for carers to retain employment as much as they can, and sometimes very light arrangements such as flexible working, some carers leave a few days can help very much. There's the issue of income, and some countries are helping with income. Issue of pension also. If you've been an informal carer for a long part of your life, your pension is very, very low. And also many attempts to kind of bridge the gap between informal carers and professional carers and try to work together through mutual learning, common learning, to share, to understand each other better, to share the same vocabulary, and to think about how to build alliance and work together. But this remains not enough, clearly, very piecemeal and fragmented. And what lacks the most is a comprehensive approach, saying, yeah, informal care is an important reality that has to be tackled in a consistent way, taking into account all the aspects of the difficulties of care. And it's important that all the aspects that are tackled together, because if you kind of like just provide income but not support work-life balance, the result will be to push people into out of employment in a way. So you really need to have a balance, mixed of policy around that. And this is starting slowly in some country, like in Portugal or in some region in Italy, who provide a framework legal initiative on carers. And this is what we are lobbying for at the EU level. We want a consistent approach to informal care. And this is, we want visibility, we want recognition, and we want the EU to be an example, to set the example and to drive member states in this direction where informal care is recognized as an essential component of the long-term care ecosystem and not an invisible thing that nobody speaks about. And also informal carers as citizens who are here to stay and who need a comprehensive approach, giving them also the possibility to take part in the definition of the policy which have a bearing on their life. We have developed a 10-point strategy, which is quite simple, but encapsulates all the dimensions that needs to be taken into account. It is an EU-level approach because we think it has to be a transversal approach in different EU policies, but it is also applicable at the national, regional, local level, and this has been done in different countries already, where this is the basis of the advocacy of, for example, our members in Belgium. So it's starting about recognizing and identifying carers. So who are carers? How many are they? What are their needs? Develop a multiplicity of support and ensure their participation in the definition of policy. It is important to keep in mind that long-term care policy is primarily the competence of member states, and it's not going to change. But the EU plays a key role to support countries in addressing the common challenges. And this has become clearer with the pandemic, with the need to coordinate forces and approach towards the fight against the pandemic. But also it's why, I mean, now it's the EU institutions are a bit more proactive in terms of promoting health and health policy at the EU level. and they also already play a key role in collection of data and knowledge, if we think about informal carers, monitoring investments, especially investments using EU funding. And we know already that the EU, a series of EU competence have an impact on long-term care. If you think about gender equality, if you think about fiscal policy, this has an impact on informal care. So we really say that we need an ambitious strategic approach addressing informal care, building on structured participation of all stakeholders and aiming for informal carers' rights and choice to be respected. At the moment, we can say that there are a variety of hooks and opportunity at the EU level to really move forward. I just put a few of them in the form of images here. The first one is this European Pillar of Social Rights, which has been adopted a few years ago. And last year, the member states, the Commission proposed an action plan, which has been endorsed by member states at the Porto summit in Porto lately, which says, among others, that everyone has a right to affordable long-term care services of good quality. And we expect a long-term care initiative to be released next year by the Commission, and we are part of the expert organization who are consulted on different aspects of this initiative. And we really advocate for, and we have good hope for this strategy to include informal care, because it's clear now that you cannot speak about long-term care in general without speaking about informal care and how informal and formal carers can complement each other. A report on long-term care is to be released next week, which is principally around care for the elderly. But I think it will bring some eyes opening on informal care in general. There's also a green paper being discussed on demographic aging. We're also actively involved in discussion on digitalization of health, on non-communicable disease, on economic recovery, and how are you going to use the money for health and long-term care, social protection rights. You can read all the detail in this position paper that are on the right of the screen by clicking on it, and you will find our position and examples. Well, this has been long already. I just want to thank you for your attention and to invite you to join us on the 6th of October, which is a date where we are now launching Day for Carers every year. Last year, we raised the question of the invisibility of carers, and this year we're going to launch a campaign on young carers, because we have been involved in a series of projects and research which bring new evidence on the issue and how you can address it. So you can just go on Eurocarers and follow us on social media, so you will receive any updates every update when we start this campaign. Thank you, and I am looking forward to discussing this with you.
Well, thank you so much, Claire, for your very nice and thoughtful presentation. We have several questions, and I will get to as many as I possibly can. The first one is that care is so expected that the work and dedication informal carers provide is almost invisible. How do we ensure we get and keep this issue on the agenda?
Well, I'd like to say this is our job, but join us. I think we are at the moment now where there's some openness, and there's some big concern also with regard to the sustainability of the social protection system, which all member states share. So it's a situation where member states realize that they need informal carers if they want to avoid bankruptcy, given the amount of care that is needed. But we have to make clear that they cannot count on us further if they don't provide the support that is needed. And we have to be careful to use this moment now in the aftermath of the crisis, because it's not sure it's going to stay very long. I mean, we're expecting also issue around budgets and austerity is possible in some countries, which during the last crisis has led to the reduction of services, including formal services and health services in many countries. So we really need to be vocal about what is needed and also provide evidence. And what we see is that in many, because it's necessary and it's possible in many places, you have very positive initiative being implemented, which cost a certain amount of money for sure, but which are remain sustainable and bring more sustainability for the future, which can be easily implemented. Some are more difficult, but some can be done, especially if we build on the opportunity provided by ICT technology, do things online, even if it's not the panacea and doesn't fit everyone, but as a complement, it can help.
Wonderful, thank you. Our next question is, what suggestions do you have for EMSP members in countries where care and caregivers continue to be unrecognized?
Join the movement. I'd like to say, yeah, that's a struggle and have to face it. It's easier not to recognize it and to think it's part of the normal personal duty of people. So it's a struggle, but I think it's important to join forces between different organizations, patients, carers, health organization, because also I take an example of cancer. We've been working with the patient organization, but also with professional medical organization. And doctors say we need carers. We need carers to be supported, and we need an ecosystem where we can work with carers, because they are important for the well-being and the chances of patients. So it's important not to stay in its own organization and to build as much as possible alliance with others, patient organization, medical organization, other carers organization, to raise the issue, keep it on the agenda, and ask for. If you think about work-life balance, there's a directive that was adopted a few years ago by the EC that is being translated now, says that you need to have 5 years at least if you are carers, 5 days a year of leave. There's many questions around the transposition. How do you count the day? What are the criteria to benefit from it? And this is the occasion for all stakeholders interested, patient organization, carers organization, professional organization, to say you need to have these 5 days open to a maximum of people. You need to have these 5 days financially compensated so that people really take it, are able to take it. You need to give more than 5 days because often it's not enough. You need to be flexible on the way people take this 5-day stretch. So it's a perfect opportunity to build partnership and discuss with your government.
Great. The next question is, where do you see the greatest potential for change in opinions about care?
Is it where in geographical terms, or, well, I will take it in a different way. We see that in the southern country, like in Italy, Portugal, many progress have been done. These are countries relying very much on informal carers till now. And there's new awareness that you need to adapt, you need to support them better. So we see many positive development, like for example in Portugal, a law passed, I think last year or 2 years ago, recognizing an informal carer status, creating a status. And they are been starting a pilot implementation of an income support, which is still going very slowly and not very sufficient, but there's an important openness, and the head of state met with different carers organization recently to discuss this implementation. So we see progress in these countries in terms of putting the issue on the agenda, discussing it. In other parts of the EU, it's sometimes more difficult, like in the eastern countries. It's still invisible in many ways. In Nordic country, you have a strong support to carers. You have at the same time a strong formal care system, but also very advanced possibilities for informal carers to be trained, supported, which is also interesting. We believe that still it is important to manage to get legislative initiative at national level for this to be really in the discussion, in the political discussion. And also, yeah, you have this whole recovery and resilience package, which is being distributed to member states based on recovery plans, and which touches a little bit on health. And it is important that through this investment in health, you have a part which is devoted to carers. I think for achieving some progress, you need to identify the informal care aspect, but not to tackle it in isolation from other stakeholders and issues.
Good. We have one more question. How can the initiatives you talk about be communicated onwards to the caring community?
Yeah, that's the difficulty of the question of sharing good practices. You have many things are happening on the ground because you have civil society organization who realize the needs and carers who get organized, but because it lacks visibility, recognition, and financial means, it's often not evaluated, not disseminated, so you have very little publication. So when you look about search for a good practice or something that can be even not replicated, but inspiring other practices, you really have to search for it. And this, we in our organization, we try to facilitate this type of exchanges. We also ask the EU institution to facilitate these exchanges. And we also try to put online a variety of article information relating to development. So you might have a look at our website, and we try to illustrate every position paper with recent information about practices and policy being developed. But because it's so tiny, because it's so limited, it's quite difficult to find easily practices. And that's why it's important and it's helpful that we're working with researchers who are able to, when we get the funding, to really map on a certain issue what is being done, what is helpful, what doesn't work. Because we see very often that if we did recently a project on mutual support group online, and you see that in many places, I mean, people in the area are trying the same thing. So it's really fascinating to see that the evolution is a bit the same, but it's still at a scale which is too little to facilitate exchange easily.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Claire, for your very thoughtful, insightful presentation about the so necessary and vital role of carers, and including how we care for those carers. At this time, I would like to ask Andres to please post the drawing of this session. Thank you very much. At this time, I will ask the organizers to move on with the video. Thank you.